I just want to give a shout out to Ruse Clothing. They're our partner for the next couple of weeks. And they're a company where fashion meets family, family spirit. They're based in Teesside, and they want to create a brand which identified with them, and it was fueled by frustration of not having the designs that they wanted. So they decided to embark on their own journey instead. So if you want to find out a little bit more about them, do give them a follow on the social media channels, and also go to the website at www.ruseclo.co.uk/Boro breakdown. That link is in the description of the podcast provider and on YouTube as well. But for right now, let's talk about the defeat against Coventry, the news from the week, look ahead to Huddersfield again, and we enter your podcast questions. This is the Boro Breakdown podcast, and this is our Boro Matchday Chatter in a pod.
Support. Curtis Fleming is there on the edge of the area. Fleming for Craig Hignett. Hit it, Higgy. Higgy hits the treble!
Ravanelli coming alive again. Juninho wants the ball played to him. Ravanelli spots out Emerson!
Hello and welcome to the Boro Breakdown podcast with Jonny, Dana and Tom. We're the Boro podcast that gives you all of your Boro Matchday chatter in a podcast. And Boro have lost the second league game in a row. It's first time since 2007-2008. However, we did win a game this week. We beat Huddersfield 3-2 in the Carabao Cup. Guys, thank you very much for joining me. As always, Dana, we want to keep with the theme of takeouts because I feel like it went well last week and it's went well on the old Twitter as well. But one key takeout or a couple of key takeouts from the week.
Oh, I think unfortunately we are in a rebuild again, and I absolutely hate that word. We have said it so many times in this podcast since we started podcasting, but we're in a transition period again, unfortunately. I really hoped that it wouldn't be the case. I really hoped that it would just be building on what we had last season, but it just seems as though we have taken several steps back. And I'm so bored because I feel like deja vu from last season, that we started last season incredibly slowly. I was saying these buzzwords like rebuild, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. And here we are again. And also my other takeout is that I do not want Boro to play Coventry at all again, especially at the CBS. I opt out of that, so Boro should opt out of that as well. It's like Orkwell level trauma, so no more CBS, please.
Yeah, I still hate going to Orkwell. I'm not going to lie, but I'll always go. Every season when they're in when they do the championship 1 year and then they go back into League One. So I always go. Every other year and just not always the same.
You wish you didn't.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, a little bit. I haven't been to the CBS actually, so I feel like I need to maybe tick that one off the list potentially next year. Who knows? Who knows? But Tom, what's your key takeout from the week?
We desperately need reinforcements is my key takeout. Looking at that team yesterday, and of course against Millwall as well, we just look incomplete. We're far from being the team I think we will be by the end of the window. Akpom potentially leaving as well doesn't really help that. It just means we're going to need to make more signings. And I think the signings have to be experienced first team ready players. I do like the project that we've had of buying these kind of like hidden gems and trying to coach them up so that they've got resale value, etc. And you could argue it's already had some success. The sales of like Spence, Tav, and now potentially Akpom. But yeah, we've got to be adding these first team quality experienced players, and you need to be looking players in the prime of their career. And as hard as that may be to find, I'm not suggesting we potentially take however much we get for Akpom. Reports it might be around 13 mil. Not suggesting we go out and sign another player for 13 mil because you're not going to replace Akpom. You're not going to be able to spend all that money to get someone to drop down to the Championship. It's more than likely going to be spread across a few players. but that is the type of quality that we need in the team at the moment. We do need some, some form of first team ready players within that 11.
Yeah, I agree with you both, to be honest, like around like the week that we've had. But I think I'm going to go with, for my key takeouts, I'm going to go with the term lack of speed. I think lack of speed, it can be like translated into multiple things, really. I'm not just mean like on pace on the pitch, but I think that, speed in terms of decision making, I think we looked like really slow, dejected, and not wanting to take the initiative. I thought the tempo was off. Fullbacks have been quite poor. I think if we look at the game yesterday, just in isolation, I thought we were absolutely terrible. And I never, ever really slate us too much, but I thought we were really poor from start to finish. It comes back to that decision-making process. We were a bit too slow. We played really narrow and played their hands a little bit, but the tempo was really off. It has been the last couple of games. The fullbacks, I think it really does highlight that we really need effective fullbacks to really embrace like the way that Carrick wants to play. But then finally, I think the lack of assertiveness and taking a game to an opposition. I think the last couple of games we've not really done that. I think I want someone to come in. It doesn't have to be someone who's physical. It just has to be someone who, because I think we did lose out on a lot of duels yesterday, but I want someone to come in and take the game to someone, be like, take the game by scruff of the neck and just go, right, this is our game now. Even if it takes a tackle, like Jonny Howson's quite good at it, but I just need someone to come in and really take the game by scruff of the neck. And I think we just lack that assertiveness at the moment. And that might come with what you were saying there, Tom, around bringing more experience into the fold. The need for a centre defensive midfielder, I think, is very glaring at the moment. And also just try to expand the pitch as well. I think that we're playing too narrow at the minute just because of the fullbacks that we've got. Big picture, I don't think it'll happen in about 4 or 5 games, but I think right now it was frustrating, like really frustrating yesterday. In terms, I went away, Coventry didn't create like big chances. We gave them big opportunities in terms of obviously the deflection happens, the own goal it happens, the set piece horrendous, but nothing else happened in the game. So it's just like, well, come on, we need to improve. But anyway, we'll come to that in just a moment. But yeah, my key takeout was just a lack of speed, and it's probably speed and assertiveness. But let's chat about a win. And we did win this week. It's not all doom and gloom on this podcast. We beat Huddersfield at the middle of the week, 1-3-2, goals from Silvera Jones and Riley McGree sealed a win. And the first time we're in the second round of the cup in 3 years. We're on the road. On the road to Wembley, but since we can go to the game, we can go, could we? So we got our Arani pie in the sky, Rob's report. So we spoke to Rob Fletcher to give us an overview of the game.
Boro eventually recorded a good win in midweek at Huddersfield. Couple of things to talk about from the game, really. It was quite a poor start, to be honest. Obviously, the mistake from Rav for the first goal basically came from Huddersfield putting a lot of pressure on our 2 central defenders and 2 central midfielders, which could be something that we see teams do quite a bit this year, making that sort of box around our players when we try and play it out. I do think we need to try and stretch the play if that's the case, using Silvera, Jones, Force, even Rodgers as the wide players to kind of try and get us a little bit more space. In that central midfield area, Hackley and Barlasser didn't look great, to be honest, in the first half. They didn't have a lot of penetrative passes, a lot of sideways passing. Barlasser in particular looked quite immobile, not great on the ball. We know he's a good passer, but he's got to do a little bit more than that for me in this midfield. Sammy Silvera was a real threat, and obviously we saw that with his goal, similar to Isaiah Jones, if not in his limited way. In terms of Rav Vandenberg, obviously his mistake led to the goal, but the rest of that half he was quite assured, he was quite confident next to Lenihan, and those two looked like quite a good partnership, to be honest. Morgan Rodgers seems to be more of a hold-up man rather than someone who gets in behind like Archer, and that was what we were missing in the first half. So it was quite good to see Sammy Silvera come in, play that sort of Cameron Archer number 9 role, trying to get in behind, trying to be aggressive, trying to run with the ball, and he actually did a really, really good job of it. He looked like an excellent player in that position. Still great out wide, but really good in that number 9 role. Paddy McNair was sort of the free man, if you like, against 10 men at right back, so we tried to recycle the ball quite a bit through him. He still looks very limited in that role. Probably similar to how Tommy Smith would be, so if there is someone who we could sort of put in there that's more aggressive on the ball, I think that'll be a little bit better. Barlasser started to then dictate play a little bit more in the second half. Obviously got his assist in the second half as well, which was pretty good. Howson looked good when he came on, especially next to Barlasser. I thought those two worked really well. Howson, I think we missed that little bit of experience in the centre of the pitch as well, which is always a positive to have him there. And one of the main things was when Riley McGree came on, he looked a different class of player to everybody else on that pitch. Really good on the ball, really good technically, could use it well, dribbled well, brought other people into play. And I think he, as most people think now, he's one of our best players, one of our most impactful players. And I wonder if we can tweak that Chuba Akpom role to fit Riley McGree and have more of our attacking players out wide and in that number 9 role. Because if we are going to get pressed as much as we were in that game, we probably do need a third player who's good on the ball to try and work around that press. Overall, plenty of work to do, but some encouraging signs definitely in that second half.
There's definitely a theme there in terms of work to do. But I just want to give a shout out to Rob as well, because he does some really good work with the Boro Mag. Boro Mag is his little baby, and it's magazine. It has loads of stories and tales in it every month or so. But do give him a follow. It's at Boro_mag. Do him a follow. Do subscribe to their email subscription list, which comes out every Monday. And also, go and get a Boro Mag as well, because there's so many. I think there's 4 or 5 volumes nowadays, isn't it? And it's really starting to grow, and you have contributed to it as well. But let's move on. Let's move on to Coventry. We got beat 3-0 yesterday. Gordon Wright and Elena Hanon goal give Coventry all 3 points at the CBS. And we've not scored a 3 games in a row against Coventry, so it's not particularly great. But Tom, there was 2 changes to the side against Millwall. Silvera and Jones came in after really good games against Huddersfield from McGree and Force. Do you think, obviously, individuals coming in, it changed the dynamic? Do you think that it maybe helped or hindered Boro's play yesterday?
It definitely changed the dynamic in that McGree and Force aren't really what I'd class as wide players, whereas Silvera and Jones are. Definitely made us a little bit more direct in terms of runs down the wing. And I think we were possibly trying to work on our delivery from those wide areas, because we saw in the Millwall game it wasn't particularly good from the amount of throw-ins we gave away from our crosses. So I think that's what we were going for. I don't think it necessarily paid off. I wouldn't have even necessarily said it was a bad thing. Just trying to change that up. It's just, I feel like it's the two players in the middle, which is going to affect the wide players every time, no matter what kind of combination that we have there. Because Rodgers, for me, still isn't a striker. I'm still seeing no signs of that in any of the games that we've played. And I just feel like the game passes Crooks by when he's at number 10. I don't really think that he does anything to the same kind of level that, he doesn't have that influence that a number 10 should have on the game, like we saw from Akpom. But Rob just made a good point there, and, trying to put McGree into that number 10 role. I really agree with that. I think Riley McGree would do excellently in that role, and, be able to kind of like play through the middle as well as, release those wide players as well. So I'd like to see the changes in the middle between those two players. I suppose even drop Rodgers back if we want to try that. But yeah, I don't want to see a combination of Crooks and Rodgers in the next game in those 2 positions. Hopefully we'll either try something different or have reinforcements in by that point.
Yeah, and Dennery, Carrick is still committing to Rodgers up front. He said in the last podcast that if you didn't see Marcus Force up top in at least one of the games, that'll be it. Do you think that's pretty much it until another striker or 2 comes in? Appreciate Emmanuel Laff is also heavily linked, and it could be done this week. But what do you think? He's not gonna change, is he, until another 2 strikers come in?
No, I don't think so. He's well within his right to try to experiment, because he did so with Akpom and it paid dividends last season. So I can definitely see why he's trying to do something similar there. But yeah, I think it's fair to say that Marcus Wallace is not considered an option through the middle, because if he was, then he probably would have played there when he came on yesterday. So for me, Marcus Wallace is an out-and-out right midfielder from this point onwards, which is, I don't agree with that personally, because I think Marcus Force is a really good finisher when presented opportunities. And just think he should at least get a chance there. If Morgan Rogers is getting a chance as a number 9, then Marcus Forss should too. But obviously, Michael Carrick seems to see fit to play Morgan Rogers there. Maybe he wants a little bit more of a mix in terms of approach from a striker, coming short and stretching the play. Although, to be fair, we're not really seeing that anyway as it stands. So, yeah, I think he's going to keep things as they are until Emmanuel Lattilath comes in or someone else.
Yeah, I think there will be more. I don't think Emmanuel
Same.
Lattilath is going to be the one. I think there's going to have to be 2 or 3 that we'll look to bring in, especially if Coburn ends up going to Plymouth, which is the old rumour. But Dana, how would you assess the overall game yesterday? Because it felt a little bit flat afterwards, to be honest. I'm not going to lie. How did you feel?
Yeah, I said it on BBC Tees. They sucked the soul out of me yesterday. I was watching England women and I was so overjoyed for them getting through to the semi-finals of the Women's World Cup. And then I switched the TV immediately to the Boro game, and I should have known to mentally prepare myself for the impending doom that Boro would have put me through. But honestly, I was so despondent at the end of the game. I did not want to talk to anybody because it was a really poor performance, really, really poor. Our passing was abysmal. There were no penetrative passes. And then when we did try to progress the play and try to stretch Coventry, the passes were so overhit. It was very unlike Boro because I feel like we are good in possession and our pass selection, our pass decision making. Last season anyway, under Carrick, was very good. They were so off. Our movement, we were very static. Then when we did see movement and we did try to get in behind, again, the passing was really bad. Morgan Rogers, again, I feel really bad for Rogers because he seems to get noted every podcast. It's not his fault. This isn't his role. When we actually switched it in the second half and Crooks played as the number 9 and Morgan Rogers played as the number 10, and we actually had a decent spell. It still wasn't great, but it was better than the first half. And it coincided with Morgan Rogers playing deeper. He got on the ball. He was driving at them a lot more. He was in that right-hand half space and he looks good. So there's positive within that. I think that there is promise in Morgan Rogers at number 10, but I don't see it with him as number 9. I'm going to sound like a broken record saying that every week if it continues. But honestly, there was a stark difference in the number 10. Casey Palmer didn't have the ball a lot for Coventry, but when he did have it, he was dropping deep. He was connecting the play because Boro had a man mark on Ben Sheaf and Josh Eccles at times. So that service from the centre-backs, from Carl McFadden and the likes, was going straight through our midfield to Casey Palmer because he was dropping deep. Conversely, Crooks just wasn't there, had the lowest amount of touches in the game with 26, I believe, was anonymous pretty much. And it's not the fault of Crooks either because that's not his position. So it's very square pegs and round holes. Let's be honest, it was square pegs and round holes last season because we had different, we had Marcus Forss playing right midfield, for example, but it worked. Right now, it's not working. The system is really weird in that, again, comparing it to last season, the fullback, which was Ryan Giles in this case, had that left-hand side to himself. Very high, very wide. You see with Hayden Coulson, as you pointed out in pre-season, Jonny, inverting, coming in central. It knocks the balance. It's not very complimentary of the pieces of the players that we have because whoever's in front of it, be it Ronnie McGree and Sammy Silvera, they can't really come in field themselves and have so much of an influence on the game because there's no outlet on that left-hand side that basically allows that to happen. So it's just, it's very narrow. We're not stretching the play. There's no real outlet. There's just a lot of things that aren't settled right now. And Michael Carrick is experimenting, and at the moment it's not working. And that was another example, the Coventry game, of it not working.
Yeah, and it was interesting that you mentioned a little bit earlier in that when you were saying about like penetrative passing. Obviously Hackney to Silvera was the main pass or the most passes in the game. But after that, Hackney had obviously received and give the most passes throughout the game. But everything else was either to Coulson, McNair, or Balassa. So like it was just like, well, if he's only being able to pass that and that's the combination that we've got, then that kind of shows that we're playing from side to side and not try to be a bit more dynamic. And Balassa was exactly the same for that as well. But Tom, how would you rate things as well? I want to get your thoughts as well, because it didn't really feel like a 3-0 game, did it? It was like, I felt like the scoreline definitely flattered Coventry.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you on that. It really wasn't a 3-0 game at all. You said earlier they didn't really create any massive chances or anything like that. We kind of gave them to them. The first goal, I think we were quite unlucky to concede that. It's typical that bounce would go straight into the path of Matty Godden. Second goal, I think we should be better from a set piece, and then you can't really do anything about a deflected third goal either. It did flatter them a bit, and of course we had a big chance. We had another one as well, which arguably Jones should have done better from. So put one of them away. It's a different game, but yeah, it definitely wasn't a 3-0 game. It's not like Coventry came out and absolutely played us off the pitch or anything like that. They weren't that good in that game, and I think 2 weeks running, it's saying that about teams as well, because Millwall were the same. Like, they looked like another team who just kind of come out of pre-season, a bit like us, but they were the better of the two. But I'm hoping this isn't going to be a recurring theme, and it's just that we don't turn up to games fully, and then teams don't even have to play at their best to beat us.
When I'm looking at Coventry yesterday, like, obviously, is it Sakamoto? Is that right? I got it right.
Yeah.
It's Sakamoto. Yeah, I was like thinking that was it Sakamoto or Sakamoto, and I was like trying to think, make sure. But yeah, he looks like a great find for them. But in terms of creativity, I would worry a little bit. I think longer term, I think they do have to invest still Coventry to improve themselves further, because I think the chances yesterday, there wasn't many, and yes, they got 3, but you can't always rely on opposition mistakes to create chances. I think they need to do a little bit more. But that happens in games. But Tom, we talk about defining moments and how a pendulum can swing. Just if someone scores a chance, and Sammy Silvera 4 or 5 yards out on a plate, if that goes in, how would you think the game fares up?
You know what? I think at that point we could go on to find a winner if Silvera had scored that. It did come around the time where we were having a decent spell in the game. I think, as Dana mentioned earlier, it had come after half time once Crooks and Rodgers had switched around and we were looking better. He's desperately unlucky to miss that, though. I think Ben Wilson's done well to get out and make himself big for it, but you need to be hitting the target from there. And I think for Silvera as well, this is possibly an example of what we heard in his lowdown video, where he's very much kind of a confidence player, because he'd gone into this game full of confidence after the last couple of displays. And then there were quite a lot of times in the first half where he was trying to get around his man. He was getting shoved off the ball. He was trying stuff that wasn't coming off. I was just thinking his head's going to go down if this keeps happening. And then to miss a chance like that, it's obviously going to go down further. And I think everyone listening will have played with someone in 7-a-side who has been similar. Like, just nothing's going for them that game. So they're going to get more and more frustrated and miss more and more chances. So, yeah, very unlucky for Silvera. I think it's going to be a test of kind of mental strength to put it behind him for the next game, and probably a strength for the coaches to help him through that as well. But I mean, he does always look positive on the ball and tries to make things happen. So fingers crossed he can put it behind him quickly and get back to normal next game. But yeah, I think he scores that, we're looking at a different game yesterday.
Yeah, and I think what you mentioned there, Tom, is really about around confidence. We spoke about it so many times this podcast, and we've got a young team already. If things don't go the way, how does confidence go up or go down? Like, how? And I think it's very difficult for young players sometimes when you're in that rut to try and get out of it, and the ability to one, take the game by the scruff of the neck, and also to take a chance as well. You don't want to play it too safe as well. So I'm very keen to see like how we've had a couple of defeats now. Can we potentially get that behind us, kick on again, and hopefully start to pick up the results? But I do think we will. I think we will. Over time we'll get better and better. I said on our preview show that I think we will probably have a slow start and then hopefully get better. I hope that comes true. But yeah, but in terms of our recruitment, it could be a master stroke. It might just click and we'll be in the playoffs or playoffs eventually. Or it could be a 10th to 12th and build next season. So it could be either or, I think, this year. But then just on the final point of the Coventry game, we've betted, and I don't want to go too much into XG because it's not the end of the world. There's so many defining parts of football, but I just found it very interesting that we've betted Coventry's XG in the last 3 to 4 games, but we've yet to register a goal, and they've went on to win 2 of them. So why do you think that is? Why can't Boro? Like they are better in the chances, but they're just not putting them away. But why do you think that is?
Yeah, I mean, we should have scored yesterday. We all know why Silvera didn't, because he was leaning back. And I feel like every time a player leans back, you know what the outcome is going to be. It's going to be high and wide, blazed in a rose head. So, yeah, that was, I would say, unfortunate. The pass was a little bit behind him. He had to readjust his body position. And yeah, it was never going to go in, was it, when he was leaning back? I think it's easy to cluster the games together because it's quite unusual to play the same team 4 out of the last 5 games. I mean, I'm sick of Coventry.
Unheard of, yeah.
Yeah, it's very unusual, but just different setups. I'm not going to cluster them. I think you probably will in terms of trying to identify key patterns, but we should have scored yesterday. So, like I said, like you have discussed, if that goes in, it's 1-1. The game opens up a little bit, and I think that Boro could have potentially hit Coventry on the counter-attack, but also Coventry pose a threat on the counter-attack themselves. So it would have been a very interesting game. It would have changed the complexion of it. So, yeah, maybe we're just cursed, to be honest. Maybe we are just cursed. I don't know. It was unfortunate we didn't score yesterday because we should have. I'm going to talk about XG. We did better them, as you said. I think it was 0.95 for Coventry, 1.33 for us. Silvera's chance accounted for 0.58 XG. So, yeah, we probably should have scored, but yeah, we didn't. We're just cursed. I hate Coventry. Put them in the bin. Put them in the bin with Orkwell in their stadium and Barnsley.
As Grant Levitt famously once said, that's football. But I've been. He said it many times.
Several times.
I did. Yeah. I heard it's on his journal, like on your doormat when you walk in the house. Like it's just got that there. When he wipes his feet, it just goes, "That's football." Everything's that's football. But I thought there's stuff to look at from the game. And I just looked at systems, and I'm looking at Boro, and I'm thinking, how can we get out of this little rut a little bit? How can we improve things? How can we tweak stuff? Just out of very much interest, to be honest. And I know that we are playing 4-2-3-1/4-4-2, but I'm kind of of the assumption that I think a 4-4-2 could be the way to go. And I know like systems and stuff like that, the only really formations are kind of just like a starting point. And then as the game progresses, you kind of rotate into different shapes. And also it's like 25%, 20-30% maximum is due to formations anyway. It's all about the individual and how they kind of how they approach that. But the 4-4-2 in general, though, I think it has so many like different benefits. It's like it's quite simple. It allows you gives you balance, like forward, defensively. It allows you to rotate in systems quite a lot. So obviously, when I say only about 25% of like the time it's going to really matter about formation too much, but it allows you to rotate, and also it allows you to protect most of the space on the pitch. And I think a lot of my character was saying yesterday around we have to be better outside off the ball. Sorry, this will probably help us a little bit more. We don't really have much of a good shape when we're off the pitch. I think we're quite easily to play against. With the wingers as well, and in this 4-4-2, like I'm looking at, I want my wingers to invert, and then once we do get the full backs in, we're able to utilize them as the space. I think at the moment, our full backs are also inverting, our wingers are inverting, and then we're becoming very, very narrow. And it's kind of shown really because as Boro progress into normal games, into a 3-2-5 really, and how I'd want Boro to play. And you can see this through a lot of teams, and the way a 3-2-5 really works is because you have to have physicality across all ends of the pitch. But if you're moving to a 3-2-5 and you have wing backs that go really wide, you're able to like create like 5v5 in the attacking areas. You've got like a 4 versus 3 in the midfield technically because you've created your own little box. And then as you move the defense along, you do create that ball from side to side. But also with that, I noticed Aston Villa do this really well. But they did it last year. Obviously, I don't want to mention it yesterday because they did get trumped by the Geordies. But what they were very, very good at last year was making something into like more of like a 2-2 kind of six, really, because what was able to happen is you'd bring the wide players in, and then you'd have your wing backs that would stretch out to give you the space that you need. And then also you've got the two defensive midfielders, so you've got your own little box which in defense. So you've got really an advantage, like a man advantage across all lines of the pitch is what you'll tend to find. Looking at Boro yesterday, there is slight tweaks to what I was mentioning there on like a 4-4-2, because how we were set up really, in looking at the average positions, Crooks was playing in more of a central position. He was playing very close to Hackney and Barlaser in like a 4-3-3. Rodgers became isolated and really static because he didn't have the supporting person with him. Our wingers, who you'd want to stay really wide, didn't, because they became inverted. And then since that Coulson McNair, mainly central players, I do think they are. When they become more central, you do become the edge. The width becomes the edge of the box, really. So then, when you look at how Coventry played, they tend to have a very compact shape. They don't like to spread themselves too thinly in wide areas. And like you were saying there earlier, Dana, around having like width and trying to stretch games. In action for Boro, really, we kind of just we did a little bit. We moved from like 4v4 in attacking areas, a 3v3 in midfield, and a 2v2 like in defense areas. But with Coulson, I want him to be so much wider. I want him to stretch teams, and I think this comes back when the fullbacks that we're bringing in Engel, and I think that'd be a really good sign. He has a very similar profile to Ryan Giles, and I think we really miss Ryan Giles at the moment, to be honest, because he was able to, when we were able to move games across, when you're playing from right to left, what you do is on that right-hand side, you're trying to stretch, bring a team over one side so you create space on the other side for Giles. So then Giles would run forward into a load of space, get the ball into Akpom, and we'd score a goal. Coulson doesn't really do that, so it's quite frustrating for us to watch. But in terms of like that small tweak, it was very similar to what we were doing yesterday. I just didn't think we were wide enough in terms of on the ball. But to be honest, then when you look at off the ball stuff, I think it's just a case of, can we maybe move into like a 4-1-4-1 system? I think it's just like, it's very easy. I think at the moment, I think we're moving to a 4-4-2 very, very, very slightly. But since we get transitioned against quite quickly, we don't really fall back into the shape as much that as I want us to. But if you do move into that 4-1-4-1 against a team who likes to have more of the ball, like a Southampton, etc., I think this could be the way to go. So you'd maybe bring Crooks into that central line. You'd maybe have a defensive midfielder, which we don't have, and I would really want us to invest in one. And then also you try and keep a compact shape. So then when you do, break, you've got the space to run into, because players will commit the body forward. But I think the three takeaways I probably have from that, from maybe moving to a 4-4-2, is that slight tweaks make a big difference. That 1% difference is if you get a wing back to go wider, then you've created more space. You need to stretch teams. And then secondly, the need of a fullback. I think we need probably one or two. I think that obviously we all know that McNair is not a fullback. We all know that Coulson that could probably play in a central position, really. I just don't think, it's not his fault, really. It's just not the right profile that we have at the moment. So you can slag him off and do all this, but at the end of the day, he's doing a job at the moment. Is he going to probably be the first team left back at the end of the month? I don't think he is, but I think he's been doing relatively okay. And then there's the need for a defensive midfielder. So coming back to the start of what we were talking about earlier in the key takeouts, that need of assertiveness. We don't have that assertive person that will like to drive games forwards, and I think that can only be managed in the transfer window. And that position is very, very difficult to find. There is players out there though, like in the European leagues. There's some players in the football leagues. I think there's a player, Peterborough. Me and Watford League were talking about last night, and they're saying like we just need to bring someone in just to fit the profile, which could hopefully make us a little bit better. But yeah, there's plenty of tweaks to have. I'm pretty sure that Michael Carrick will not watch this video and be like, "Oh, that's a good idea." But it's just small tweaks, it's ideas, and it's just like how games could potentially change. But there is work to do. There's so much work to do, and I think we'll definitely get there. But let's move on. Let's move on to questions, because each week you get the chance to send us a question via Twitter, Boro_breakdown. Email the Boro Breakdown at hotmail.com, or by joining our Telegram chat with over 370 Boro fans in there, just chatting nothing Boro at all. Well, we did actually a little bit about yesterday, but apart from that, nothing much at all. But the first question is from Dave, and he says, "Poor squad selection. How does Crooks keep starting up front? Is it time? Is it time to stop hoping that Jones will come good?" Dana, do you want to take this one? How does Crooks keep starting up front?
I guess Michael Carrick just doesn't have the options that he wants to. But the counter argument of that is that you've literally got Marcus Forss in your squad. I will say, and I said this on the last podcast as well, that Michael Carrick has to shoulder some responsibility for the defeat, because I think the team selection was quizzical, really. I mean, Riley McGree coming on with 10 minutes to go, when, in my opinion, he's one of our most influential players, one of our best players. That was interesting. I don't know whether Riley McGree had a knock, or he was ill, or there was something that essentially enabled that to happen, and for him to only come on with 10 minutes to go. But I think that was a decision that I didn't agree with. The insistence on playing Rodgers in a position that just doesn't suit him and doesn't suit Middlesbrough, also very, very interesting. With Jones, I really want to give Jones time. The podcast that he did in the off season, I think, opened up a lot of, it answered a lot of the questions from last season. And I think we just need to be a bit more patient with him. And people will say, well, he's been in this team for 2 seasons now. He should be performing. But the thing that the issue that I've always had with Jones is just his technique. Like, who am I to talk about technique? But when I watch him, his crossing's just very odd. And I don't know whether you think the same, but there were a few crosses again yesterday where he spooned it out, and he's very good when he gets to the byline and when he cuts it back. Maybe we just need to play to that strength, because Isaiah Jones, when he was doing that under Chris Wilder, was very, very good. That doesn't change because of his form after that. He was a very, very good fullback under a wing back under Chris Wilder when he was getting to the byline and cutting it back. It worked incredibly well. Maybe we just try to get that happening again. But the team selection the past 2 games, I must admit, has been weird, because again, broke a record, Dana strikes again. But just play Marcus Forss through the middle. If Morgan Rodgers is getting that opportunity through the middle, why isn't Marcus Forss?
Yeah, and just on the Jones point as well, I think it comes from his second to last touch. So the touch before he hits the cross in. I think he's either not hitting it enough in front of himself, or he's not hitting it enough. So he's not getting the whip around it. Do you know what I mean? I think at the moment, sometimes his crosses, they become a bit diagonal rather than hooking right rounds. Like Dan Ballas is very, very good at hooking the ball around. So maybe speak to Dan Ballas. I don't know. I'm not the guy to make things better for you. But yeah, I think that's probably the reason why that we're not seeing that. I think it's just the case of his second last touch. It's just probably not. He's not hitting it enough in front of himself to kind of give him the opportunity to really whip it. But let's move on. And it's from P302, and it says, "Is this season a write-off? Looks like we saw the quality sides going down and brought in youngsters to bed in to prepare for a bash next year. The difference with us and Coventry, who also lost a star striker and top sister, is stark. They're reinvested. They have spent, I think, 30 million now, and we haven't. Is it long-term planning? So, Tom, is this season a write-off?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I was looking at the table yesterday. Sunderland are pretty much in the same position we are, and Leeds are 1 point above. I don't think either of those teams are going to be looking at this and thinking it's a write-off, especially Leeds, who've just got Daniel Farker and going to be looking to get promoted rebound back to the Premier League on first time of asking. And I suppose there's other examples as well of even similar situations to what we find ourselves in at the moment. You look at Sheffield United, the year they went up under Chris Wilder, got hammered 3-0 by a Tony Pulis Boro team in their second game, and still ended up going up automatically.
True.
I don't think at that time they might have been losing it a little bit and thinking the season's a write-off, but it just goes to show that it's not. There's still 44 games to go, and I have confidence that come the end of the transfer window, we'll be a different looking team. We've potentially got a loss of Akpom to come, and hopefully funds to reinvest there. I suppose the difference between us and Coventry there is, they've lost their top scorer and top assister, but they've received fees for both of them. We haven't yet lost our top scorer, and our top assister was on loan, so we haven't even received any money from that. I think the last big fees that we had were last season, weren't there? I can't remember selling anyone for a massive fee this season yet. So, yeah, hopefully we will reinvest that, and by the end of the transfer window, we will have some quality in the team to get us moving forward.
Yeah, and we were third bottom in October, November last year. So were Coventry as well. So I mean, look what happened there. Yeah, they were rock bottom. Didn't have a stadium. All things were falling apart, and now look what happened. So that's football. Things change quickly. Last question though, Dana. Stuart says, "Do you still think we're top two? And do you?"
If I was to retract that prediction now, it would be as silly as me making it in the first place. Because, as Tom said, there's 44 games to play. We're 2 games into the season. And the glorious thing about the Championship is that you do not have to be anywhere near perfect to get promoted automatically. If Scott Parker's Bournemouth can get second place, then anything can happen. We have seen teams in this division over the past couple of seasons accelerate. I think Tom made a good mention there that I completely forgot about. Sheffield United under Chris Wilder, the start of 2018-19 that season. Yeah. Forest, very notable example where they were terrible when we played them at the City Ground when Chris Hughton was their manager. They looked so far off it was untrue. They looked like relegation candidates, and they ended up going up. Last season, Coventry, rock bottom, 1 penalty kick away from the Premier League. Even Luton they didn't start as slowly as what ourselves and Coventry did, but they were meddling mid-table, and then they had a really good run, really good progression. They kept it going, and then they got promoted. It is not out of the realms of possibility that Boro have a slow start and be at least on the cusp of success. So yes, it might seem absolutely ridiculous that I said second. I think that it is ridiculous that I said second, but it's not impossible that it could happen, and I'm not going to retract that statement 2 games into the season.
Just to add a couple of examples on the other end of the spectrum there as well, I'm pretty sure we would QPR top at some point in the early stages of last season, and Blackburn were constantly within about a point of automatics until they dropped off late on. So
I think when we played Blackburn at Blackburn, so this was around the turn of the year. It was around the turn. It was just before the new year. They were 3rd or something. Look where they finished outside the playoff places.
Weren't we 10th as well at that point, 8th to 10th? I don't think we were in the playoffs. We weren't.
Yeah, we were. I don't think we were in the playoffs. No.
Yeah, we were working our way back up.
Yeah, I don't even think Cameron Archer had signed by then, or even Ramsey. No. So, yeah. See, it can all change. It's the Championship, that is the crazy nature of the league. And yes, we've said on the podcast today that there is improvement to be made, and there is. Let's state the obviously. 100%. We need to improve. But that one signing, that one moment, that one goal, that one decision, that can completely change a whole season. So I think that although there's that aspect of things are over, we're terrible, Gibson out, all this kind of stuff, it can change in a heartbeat. And I think that we need to have that context of it as well. Yes, it's a slow start, but we could still 100% be up there. And I'm very confident that we still will be. It's just those fine tweaks. And just another point as well, Man City always tend to have quite a weirdly slow start. Yes, they are 3rd or 4th in the Premier League, but it normally takes them until about January, and then they'll just go on this insane streak and win pretty much every game and always win the league. So there's always time in football, and we just need to give this moment time as well, even though we're not in the best possible shape. But let's move on to the praise and place now, because the praise and place is the place where to give praise to Dana's lovely shirt, which she's wearing today. What brand is it again, Dana?
It's Kitten Born. It is a Euro 96 nod, I guess. It was the Euro 2021 or whatever, the COVID Euro special shirt. So it's ice cream, basically. Summer of 96.
It's a nice design shirt. And speaking of shirts as well, Tom is wearing an 01-02 Boro away kit today, and that pedals quite nicely into our Boro Breakdown limited edition shirt. So it is an alternative away shirt. It is only available for the first batch anyway until next week. So if you do want it, the link is in the description of this podcast, and your provider It'll be on our social media channel as well. But do get it. It is a beautiful shirt. I cannot wait to wear it in the next week or two. So yeah, £35. What an investment. What an investment. And you're rocking the podcast as well. But praise and place, guys. Tom, I can sit here and give you praise all week, but I want to hear your praise for someone else. But who was in your praise and place this week?
Well, before I start, I just want to clarify, because you said I'm sat here in a 0102 Boro kit. I'm not. It's just the shirt. I'm not sat here like some sort of full kit wanker.
Sorry. You could be. You could have been. You could have the socks and all sorts.
Definitely
Yeah,
not.
we can't
I
see.
promise that to all of our listeners. My praise and place pick this week, and it might seem a little bit kind of out there considering he's already been mentioned a few questions ago, but Isaiah Jones, it's not necessarily because of anything he's done kind of like attacking wise or anything like that. I just feel like he is getting back up to the level that he was playing at when he first broke into the team. I think it can get overlooked as well because of as an overall how poor we were yesterday. But no one's really. I didn't see any one bit of criticism from anyone saying Jones isn't running at his man or anything like that. He is now, and he's tracking back and he's winning those defensive duels like he was when he first broke into the team, and he looks quicker. I think once the team is more settled and everything's in place, if Jones is still within that team, I think he's going to be showing exactly the type of form he is capable of. Like I say, it's a low bar for this one, and it's not necessarily because of anything he did in terms of attacking output yesterday. Obviously, he missed a chance. He did square a decent couple of balls across though, but I think he is getting back there, and I'm going to be really interested to see where he ends up in the next few weeks.
So do I. It could be anywhere. But yeah, good mention that, because Isaiah Jones wasn't in mine, but that's a good point. Dana, who's in your praise and place this week?
I'm going to praise a moment and then an attribute. So my moment is Dan Barlas's pass in the build-up to the second goal against Huddersfield, was it? Sammy Silvera's. Honestly, what a ping. When I think of midfielders taking an influence or having an influence on a game from deep, I think of that type of pass. And also another one, actually, Hayden Hackney's pass for the red card. Daisy cutter, lovely, just so satisfying to watch that just fly ever so slightly over the top of the grass. Really good. And then the attribute, Senny Dieng's distribution. Let's talk about that for a second. Very, very good. Better than Zach Steffens. I'll put it out there. Better than Zach. Different to Zach Steffens, but better than Zach Steffens, in my opinion. So I am a big fan of Senny Dieng's distribution. So I'll put that in the praise of place as well.
Yeah, and I was going to say Barlas's second assist where he threads it through for Jones as well. That was lovely too. He had a great evening, did Dan Barlas midweek. Obviously after the Millwall game where we're getting loads of questions about how poor he was, he pulled out 2 assists. So,
well, sorry, was Silvera's goal the equaliser? I think it was, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, not the second goal, the first one. Yeah, my bad.
It's all right. Don't worry about it. Yeah, and my praise and place. It is Senny Dieng. Just to say, yeah, like from the distribution side of things, I was like very impressed yesterday. I was against Millwall, and I was definitely yesterday against Coventry. His long range kicking's fantastic. And also, he's quick off his line. It looks like a really good bit of business. I think 1.5 to 2 million from him. And, if you can try and find a profile similar to Zach Steffen, that is exactly that. And I think he's been a really good purchase so far. I'm quite happy with it. I think Boro fans should be happy too. I've heard nothing, but I've heard nothing. It's not been his fault once yet. And normally, when you concede 4 goals in 2 games, you'll be getting a load of stick, but none of it's happened to Senny Dieng. So yeah, that must be something good for Boro fans. But yeah, for me, he's in my praise and place because he just looks really good at the moment. Yeah, but mainly because of his distribution, like you were saying there, Dana. Let's move on. Let's talk about news of the week, Dana, because Boro have been mentioned and, hoping to sign some players this week. And also there's one person that could potentially be leaving. So what's been happening in the world of Boro?
Yeah, so Boro is set to sign Lucas Engel from Silkeborg for 2.5 million euros, left back. We will, of course, do a lowdown on him. But one thing I do want to note is that he used to be a left midfielder, so that's very interesting. Emmanuel Latte-Lath, incredible name. He's set to join from Atalanta. He played at St. Gallen last season and scored 16 goals in all competitions. And then the Curse of the Boro Breakdown podcast, Chuba Akpom is leaving. Lons are set to sign him. A team that finished second in League 1 last season, which I did not know because my mind is back in 2009 when Lyon used to rule France with Karim Benzema and free kick Juninho. I don't even think he was there then, actually.
Free kick Juninho.
He might have left before that. Iconic, but not the Juninho. I do have to say that. But yeah, Akpom leaving. This news broke when I was watching the Red Card game, but 11 million euros supposedly. So yeah, we can have our thoughts on that fee, as I'm sure we will when we dedicate a whole podcast to his departure.
I know. Sam Morsey first. Now Chuba Akpom.
I know, yeah.
Why do we just curse things we love? You know, like why? Why? I don't get it.
Because I'm on here.
Well, yeah, true. That is true. Yeah. Well, look, guys, if you are listening to this podcast or you're watching us, just think if Dana ever offers your advice, just don't take it because it's just going to end up in bad luck. I'll level with you as well. Just don't do it. But I kind of want to hear your thoughts on Chuba leaving, though, guys. I know we're going to probably bring out a show this week when it's all confirmed. There's going to be lowdowns on Lucas Engels and Emmanuel Latte-Lath as well, coming out probably this week when they're confirmed. But Tom, how are you feeling? Chuba is going to leave the building. How does it make you feel?
I mean, bit gutted, but I have kind of already made my peace with it quickly. We've said a lot of times on this podcast, it does seem to be that we are trying to sell players on for profit and kind of emulate those types of models that, Brentford and Brighton have had. I bet the fans of those two teams were gutted when they were selling players like, Neil Maupay, Ollie Watkins, etc. And they were kind of going up to the Premier League. The key thing is they replaced them. And that's where a bit of nervousness comes in. I think this is going to be a test for the recruitment team. Sky had a graphic on yesterday. I think we've lost something like 58 goals from last season. And we've obviously
50,
lost...
I think it was.
Yeah, 50 goals from last season. We've lost Giles's assists, which I think we have tried to replace in the attacking midfielders that we've brought in, and Balassa getting a run in the team as well. We need to replace those goals, and it's obvious they're not going to come from Crooks and Rodgers being in the forward positions. It is going to be a test. Hopefully, Laff can come in and make an impact quite quickly. But we're going to need more options in those areas. So for me, it's important that this fee is reinvested and that we bring in the types of players who can replace those goals.
Absolutely. Dan, what do you think as well?
Yeah, it felt inevitable, really, that Chuba was going to leave. I think I probably held that opinion midway through the summer when there was basically nothing about a contract extension. I don't know what's gone on. I don't know whether it's a case of... Well, I think it's obvious that Chuba enjoys playing here, that he enjoys working under Michael Carrick, but I also think it's true that he will want to test himself. And when an opportunity presents itself to him to play in the Champions League, let's not kid ourselves. Let's take our Boro rose-tinted spectacles off. We do not compare to a Champions League team and a team that finished second in a top 5 European division last season. So I obviously wish him all the best. There's no bitterness at all. I hope he does well because I think that will also benefit Boro from an add-on perspective, looking at it business-wise. But I feel like the writing was on the wall for a while. It's sad. It's shit to lose your best performing player last season. But as Tom said, it's about how we reinvest it and how we replace him. And I'm hoping that we can bring in the right player or two, because it might not be just one player that replaces Chuba Akpom.
Yeah, absolutely, and it feels like a breakup, to be honest, doesn't it? You know, we've had that just a roller coaster of emotions for the last 12 months, and I agree with you both. I think it's a really good move for him. I'm happy for him to take the plunge into Liga and then just and test himself in Champions League as well. Like, what an opportunity! You know what I mean? It's a big contract. He's 28. You got to take it, surely. You know, you've got to take it. I think. Even if you're Boris' perspective as well, you can't rely on Chuba to hit 29 goals again this season. It's unsustainable. Do you know what I mean? I don't think we're able to do it, and there's teams that adjust to that as well. So I think Boris' perspective, you try and cash in. Chuba's perspective, he even said on this podcast how much he loved playing here, and he even said it was after the show as well, like how much he loves it as well. So I mean, there was genuine love for all of what he's doing here, but you know, you've got to
And
move
he
on.
was
You've got to test
genuinely
yourself.
injured.
And he
He
was
was
genuinely injured.
genuinely injured.
Yeah.
People like to create this narrative that like they're faking an injury. Like, no, they're not. They're not.
Yeah.
And Chuba wasn't. So yeah.
Yeah. So there's that as well. So, but yeah, we'll bring up a show later on in the week when it's all confirmed. But goodbye, Chuba. Thanks for everything. Anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about Huddersfield. Then, because Boro are playing for the second time in 3 fixtures. This time we're at home. We don't have Brady this week. I thought it'd be a bit harsh on him to give me another voice note, just to say like the similar things that he spoke about last week. But Tom, it's very, very early on. Neil Warnock is our kryptonite. But is it vital that we get a win on Saturday? Because I feel like that will put a lot of doubters to bed.
I feel like it's vital for you because it's Neil Warnock in the other dugout. So.
I hate him so much. I do.
I'm going to stop just short of saying like it's vital must win, because I would reserve that for something where something's on the line, whether that's getting automatic promotion places, playoffs, staying up, etc. But I do think it is important to get a win next week. We haven't seen us score a league goal this season. Now you got a chance against Huddersfield at the Riverside to do that. Hopefully we can have some signings in by then. And I understand they're probably going to have about 6 days training. If Engels and Laff are signed this week, I would have them both in the starting 11 straight away, just for some balance in the team. Engels, can slot straight in at left back, and hopefully we can kind of recreate what we were doing last year with Giles in terms of having an attacking threat at left back as well as other areas of the pitch. And then Laff, it just makes sense to have an actual out-and-out striker in that position, like Laff or Marcus Forss. But, Marcus Forss isn't going to happen, apparently. So, yeah, may as well get Laff in there. So, yeah, I think next Saturday it is important just for the morale of the fans, maybe even the morale of the team to get that win. But I'm not going to panic if we don't, if it's like a 1-1 draw or something like that. But obviously we want to win every game. So just hopefully we can win and win comfortably next Saturday.
I hope so too. I can't lose to Warnock again. I can't do it. I can't do it myself. It's going to be the 4-2-3-1, long ball to channels, nice and compact, man marking. You know exactly what you're going to get, and
you just told the lads to enjoy it, Jonny. Just told the lads to go out there and enjoy it
by being disciplined here. Anyway. Dana, how many changes do you think we'll make then? Do you think the new boys, or if they are involved, of course, they might not have been able, they might have signed, but do you think we'll make many changes to the game or not?
I hope so. My team for that game is Dieng, McNair, Fry, Lenihan, and Engel if he is here, but if not, then it's going to have to be Coulson. Howson and Hackney is the double pivot, and then Forss on the right. Funny, I've been clamoring about him being through the middle. I haven't put him through the middle in this. Then Rogers, number 10, McGree on the left, and then actually Silvera up front, just because I think we need somebody to be able to stretch the play. Or obviously, if Emmanuel Latte-Lath is in, then him in place of Silvera.
Okay, then let's move on to predictions then. Tom, what are you predicting? Do you think it'll be a win, a draw, a loss, match abandoned? What do you think?
I want 2-0 Boro win.
2-0 Boro win. Goal scorers?
If he's signed by then, we'll have to get one on his debut, and then probably Force as well.
Okay,
Oh, Emmanuel gets the latte laugh.
I'm not going to even comment on that. To be honest. Anyway, I hope the listeners really, really had that same thought of mine and just go, "Wow, like this is up there with Harry Potter and the Wizard of Oz."
I know, not that mention. Oh, I forgot that existed.
I thought you were going to say, "Oh, it's like a bit of like a force, like force laugh." Like, and I thought, "Oh, here we go, like good play on," like you know what I mean. But then, no, you have to go with that anyway. Dana, prediction: who do you think's going to score? Are we going to win, lose, draw, match abandoned?
I'm gonna say 2-0 Boro, Hackney, and Rogers. And you know what? From this point onwards, I'm gonna predict Rogers to score until he does. So yeah, Rogers
no.
and Hackney.
This is a new Orlean on Linehan, isn't it? It's gonna. Oh God, just don't start putting money on it, Dana, please. I just want to go with a 1-0 win. I just want us to want anything. I don't care if it goes off someone's backside. I just want us to score, get 3 points, and that's it. I hate these type of games, but yeah, I just hope we win. Please, please, Bar, please win. But guys, thank you very much for joining me as always. To the listeners and the viewers, do give us a 5-star rating on your podcast provider, thumbs up on YouTube, subscribe, do all that fun stuff because that helps us get charted in the podcast charts. But also, don't forget to buy our Boro Breakdown shirt. Don't forget to look out for Brew's clothing as well. But for right now, Boro lose back-to-back games since 07-08. There's plenty to do, but it's okay. We can sit back, relax, have a latte, have a laugh, and love Engels instead. This is the Boro Breakdown podcast, and that was like a Boro Match Day chatter in a pod. Up the Boro Breakdown.